Hey everybody, so today I'm going to go over how to use one of these things, the bicycle wheel truing stand, to get good quality, strong, durable, straight wheels. Stay tuned. Okay, so I'm going to do a little series of, I don't know how many videos it's going to be, but it's going to be basically a series for beginner wheel builders, wheel truers, wheel repairs, broken spokes, whatever, things like that. So I'm going to go over a few things and I'll create a playlist. But anyway, for today we're going to go over this, basically how to use a truing stand, how it works. Anyway, this particular truing stand is my old Park Tool TS2. I believe this one it's a 1995 model, which I basically just had it in my garage, and I'm going to go back and forth on this video with this truing stand and then the truing stand I use at work. I have a newer, the TS 2.2, which is the very latest version. It's only a year old, so it's got quite a few nice, the calipers here, the side jaws are a little nicer. This one can be upgradable. I think here in a future video I'm going to do a video on how to upgrade the arms and then the pieces here, and the basic adjustment portion there is all upgradable. So anyway, first things first, so when you just look at one of these, you'll notice that there's basically 3 knobs. Sometimes there'll be 4. For this particular one, there's 3. You got this knob here, that one, and then this one. So kind of first things first, we'll address this one. This one adjusts these arms back and forth there, so allows you to put different size wheels in there. So got a wheel here, and adjusting that either in and out. So one mistake I see a lot of newer wheel builders do is that as you tighten this in, it's like over tightening the knob. You basically just need to tighten it to where it's snug, and maybe just ever so slightly more, just enough to where you can't really move the wheel in the stand, but where you don't want to go buck wild and really torque that thing, because then it kind of distorts everything and then will kind of make everything a little bit wonky, give you some inaccurate measurements. So that's the knob there to adjust your spacing, rear wheel, front wheel. There's different widths. Nowadays you've got front wheels that are all over the place, rear wheels that are all over the place. You got these 2 knobs here. This knob basically controls how high this arm is going to go. So that's going to control as far as your radial adjustments to the wheel. This particular wheel, if I get, I can, if I ever so slightly move the knob to the point of where I can start to hear the rim hitting there on the bottom. So that's how you would adjust your radial play up and down. So you got this knob that controls the calipers here that go kind of control your lateral movement or your side to side. So essentially, in order to build a high quality wheel, or true wheel, whatever, as far as the end result, there's basically 4 dimensions that you want to shoot for. One is basically just the overall tension of the spokes. The second dimension would be your dish. So these 2 center points of the cones or the lock nuts there, and some wheels are not, they're just going to have basically stops. If it's a cartridge bearing type system, some will have a lock nut if it's a cup and cone with loose ball bearings in there, or whatever. Anyway, the outside edge of the lock nuts there, the rim needs to be centered between that. So that's dimension number 2. So dimension 3 would be your lateral movement. As far as the rim moving side to side, you want to have that minimal amount of movement. And then dimension 4 would be your up and down movement there. As far as just the wheel spinning, is it out around? You'll hear people talk about, I couldn't get that last little bit of hop out of the wheel, or yeah, my rim's got an egg shape, or things like that. Of the 4 dimensions, a truing stand can do 3 of those. It can't gauge tension. It can gauge dish, if you're familiar with how to do that. It can get your radial dimension set and your lateral dimension set there. As far as before you really start getting into putting the wheel, truing the wheel or doing any kind of work like that, what you want to do first though is make sure that your truing stand is basically true or calibrated. It's straight. It's going to read straight as far as the arms here. When you have your wheel in, properly dished wheel, it's going to be centered between the 2 caliper jaws here. So I'll post a link up here in the corner, that corner up there, as far as Park Tools video on how to adjust, calibrate this thing. So that's going to be step 1. They have an actual tool that you can set in there, but you can also, if you have a known correctly dished wheel, you can use that as well. So basically just by setting the wheel in, looking at the 2 calipers there, and then flipping the wheel over. And I'll get into this more in probably the next version. I'm going to do an actual kind of entry-level wheel truing. Maybe after you built a wheel and you're bringing it up to tension, truing the wheel, or just replacing a spoke, things like that, and getting the wheel tensioned and straight. We'll get into that a little further, but by flipping the wheel over, you can basically gauge how straight the wheel is, and then actually your truing stand as well. You can actually do this flipping the wheel thing with I've done it many times at places where the truing stand was a little out of whack, and you can tell just by where it's centered one side or the other. Ideally, I like everything as square as possible within the truing stand. Just makes it that much easier to do the wheels later on. So with everything being straight, your jaws are going to be super effective at that point. It's again, I'll get more into this when I'm going through the wheel truing tutorial, but I've seen, as far as kind of ways of using a truing stand that I see that are a little bit ineffective. I see a lot of times, so I'll see guys do something like they'll put something under one of the arms there to hold one side away, and something like that. Or there's even a video of a guy that's super popular video, and he's got one arm removed. And to me, honestly, that's if you're going to do that, you might as well just true your wheel in the bike frame and put a zip tie on it, because it's basically going to be you're going to save yourself a couple $100 unless you can get one of these really cheap or something. But see how the jaws move simultaneously? There's a good reason for that. That's what separates the truing stand from just using zip ties on a bike frame. Anyway, that's another, we'll get into that whole thing a little further when we get into the wheel truing tutorial. But anyway, I'm just going off the, get your stand set up straight initially, and there is pretty simple to use. That's going to do it for this particular video on getting the truing stand set up. Some models, they're going to have a 4th knob which will control your the actual pivot this one's being the older model, it's the older base, and what that will allow you to do is actually pivot this thing back and forth, and that's just so you got a nice, depending on the wheel size, and you may be sitting, your bench may be high, you're sitting, your bench may be low, you're standing, but it gives you just a nice line of sight for the wheel size, to see in the calipers here. My particular stand, I've added some extra tape here. Again, I'll get into this more with the wheel truing video, and I'll show you some other tips in addition to that. But yeah, so that's going to do it for this one. Stay tuned for some of these future videos, and in this playlist I've already got a few wheel building, replacing spokes, removing dings, severely straightened or severely bent wheels, things like that. So hopefully by the end it's going to be a pretty substantial, longer playlist. So anyways, be sure and check that out. If you're not a subscriber to this channel, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell. I'm always putting out videos, usually every week or so, sometimes 2 or 3 times in a week. So anyway, that's going to do it for this one, and thanks for watching.